After Chris Boswell and several other kickers, by the way, are giving you week-winning performances in Week 11, if you're still doubting whether kickers can win you a week, I don't know what to tell you. This is what separates champion teams from teams that are just not good enough to win the championship. This is why we go through top 12 kicker rankings every single week, and I'm the only fantasy YouTuber who does it every week. So just make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first tier right here, we've got Kiami Fairbairn versus the Tennessee Titans right here. So with Kiami Fairbairn, this guy is a number 2 kicker in fantasy still. He's got 11.5 fantasy points per game. Honestly, he's just been really consistent over this entire season. He's only had 3 games with less than 10 fantasy points. He has been so consistently getting you points. This matchup versus Tennessee is everything. It's awesome. It's like it was versus Dallas last week, when even though he had 4 extra point attempts, he had 2 field goal attempts. The defense last week was beatable with Dallas. Well, it's just as beatable this week versus Tennessee, except maybe there's actually another extra field goal attempt because of the fact that it's a divisional game and Tennessee knows how to play Houston. Either way, Houston's offense is still not running like a well-oiled machine yet. They're still getting you down there because they're talented and good enough, but they're not always capitalizing. That's what makes Kiami Fairbairn such a good kicker right now. Number 2, Austin Seibert. Welcome back. By all accounts, looks like we're getting Austin Seibert back of the Washington Commanders, and he gets the luxury of taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And Austin Seibert, even more so than Chris Boswell, averaging more fantasy points per game. 13.3 fantasy points per game from Austin Seibert. He's been electric this year in fantasy football because, again, Washington's offense is honestly so perfect for a kicker because they're getting you down there so much in that zone to where you can kick a field goal, but they're not always capitalizing. And right now, their defense doesn't look as strong as they had been over the past, over the first month and a half of the season. Their offense is starting to slow down just a little bit, which makes this matchup against Dallas a great one. Because again, they're not going to struggle to get down there in range. It's all about, can they finish drives? And even if they do finish, 4 drives and then get 2 field goal attempts, could be a very similar week to Kiami Fairbairn. I like Austin Seibert in his return a lot. And then with Jake Bates at number 3, I've been hearing you guys. I hear it every week from you guys. Why is Jake Bates not getting his respect? Listen, probably an oversight by me, because Jake Bates has been really good over the last month and a half. 9.5 fantasy points per game after a little bit of a slow start to the year. Since their bye week, 19 points, 8 points, 12 points, 6 points, 12 points, 12 points. To be honest with you guys, not that it makes it better, but he's been right outside the top 12 for weeks now. Obviously, right now, I'm calling it because it's a great matchup right here. At Indianapolis, the matchup is totally there for him to take advantage of. And again, when you look at this, it's not that he's attempting tons of field goals. The reason why I've been more reluctant to play Jake Bates and have him inside the top 12 is because most of the time they're kicking extra point attempts. But every so often, they kick 1 or 2 field goal attempts that are long enough to go with like 4, 5, 6 extra point attempts here. So, the amount of attempts that he gets per game, because Detroit is so efficient and electric offensively, is just too much to ignore at this point, and the matchup is fantastic. Dropping down to our next tier right here, Cameron Dicker of the Los Angeles Chargers versus Baltimore. Cam Dicker's actually been really good of late too. He's the kicker number 6 right now, averaging 9.8 fantasy points per game. Cameron Dicker, since the bye week, again, 12 points, 21 points, 9 points, 3 points, 9 points, 12 points. 1 bust game in there. 1 bust, and that's it. Because the Chargers offense is sort of like the Houston Texans offense, a little bit like the Commanders offense. They will get down there because they have talent to do so. It's just a matter of, do they score field goals or do they score extra point attempts? Now, with this matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, this is the Harbaugh Bowl. This one could go a lot of different ways, but ultimately, I just like Cameron Dicker's upside in this type of matchup because this will not be without points, and I think there could be a potential of a lot of field goals in this game. I like Cameron Dicker a lot this week. Number 5, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns tonight. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who don't like this one. Boswell's coming off a massive game. Like, I'm not telling you guys to sit Chris Boswell or to drop in for another kicker. If you have Boswell, just roll with the dude. He's been electric this year. Boswell doesn't rarely miss. I just don't know if they're going to be 6 field goal attempts and no touchdown. Like, that was a rare week last week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Honestly, not that rare, though, because he has done it a couple times. But the reality of this one is that it's the lowest over-under of the week. It's on a short week. Cleveland will put up a fight in this game. I do believe that. And so I just don't think there will be as many scoring opportunities. Although Boswell is money all the time, and he will get field goal attempts in this game. So again, not telling you to drop him for any of the guys above him. I'm just saying that Boswell probably doesn't hit that ceiling once again this week. And Chase McLaughlin at number 6. Of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New York Giants this week, matchup is obviously fantastic. The Giants defense will get worn down by the end of the third, early fourth quarter because their defense had been on the field all day up to that point. Because Tommy Cutlets can't move the ball on the New York Giants side. So I think that there's going to be a lot of good opportunities, and McLaughlin's been largely good. 9 fantasy points per game is what he's averaging, and he's only missed 2 kicks this year. A lot of Chase McLaughlin, what he's been able to do is been able to get down there and kick more extra point attempts than field goals. But again, similar to Jake Bates, to where Tampa's offense should be running really well in this game against the Giants, that I do think that there's going to be opportunities for 4 extra point attempts and maybe 2 field goals in this game. I think opportunities should be there. Coming off a bye week, I think Tampa's offense with Mike Evans back should be a lot more efficient as well. You know, Matt Stafford's projection this week on Underdog is so sweet. It's at 0.5 total yards. And if you hit the higher on this one, you're winning free money, basically. Underdog is providing new customers that ability this week. So if you want to get in on this one, go down the comments, grab the link that's there, and use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. They'll match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 of bonus cash when you take advantage and hit the higher on the sweat-free pick with Matt Stafford this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we've got John Parker Romo at number 7 of the Minnesota Vikings at Chicago this week. Now, here's my thing with John Parker Romo is that obviously he's been good. 9.5 fantasy points per game. He's played 2 games. Both of them have been serviceable. One of them was really good against Jacksonville in week 10. And then Tennessee, he only had 6 points because he did miss an extra point attempt. Now, here's the ultimate reality here. Divisional game, I like those types of matchups. Chicago's defense is tough. The only problem I have with John Parker Romo is that Minnesota's offense is starting to show some cracks. They're not putting up as many points per game as they were at the beginning of the year. So I ultimately do kind of question how much upside does he really have on this Minnesota offense. I do think it's becoming less and less so. And with the Bears here, I just think that there will be a match of intensity because the Bears are starting to put up a better fight. They played better last week, but competitively, and I do think that the Bears will come out ready to try to win this game. So I think that John Parker Romo gonna have his opportunities because Minnesota will get it down there, but I think they're probably gonna be less and less over the next several weeks. Jason Sanders at number 8. Of the Miami Dolphins versus New England here with Jason Sanders. You know, Jason Sanders, I've been saying this for weeks. Since Tua came back into the fold, Jason Sanders has actually done really well in fantasy. Like, really well. He's averaging 8.8 fantasy points per game, but the moment that Tua came back in week 8 versus the Arizona Cardinals, since then, 11 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, 15, and 11. This isn't like years past, where last year, Miami was so efficient offensively, they weren't kicking many field goal attempts. It was touchdown or bust for Miami. This year, it's different. They're kicking field goals much more than last year, and Jason Sanders has been dead accurate since Tua came back. So I like Jason Sanders a lot every single week, and a divisional matchup versus New England makes a lot of sense to me this week. And Spencer Schrader of the Kansas City Chiefs at number 9 to round out this tier. At Carolina this week, listen, the matchup is fine. Spencer Schrader, ultimately, I'm just disappointed that it's not Harrison Butker. Love Harrison Butker. I think he's done really well. But obviously with Spencer Schrader, last week, he just didn't do very much. Like last week versus Buffalo, 3 points because there was no field goal attempts. It was 3 extra points. So ultimately, I'm just kind of like, with Kansas City's offense, it's difficult to predict because sometimes they will get down there and be stopped and kick field goals, but other times they're going to be really efficient. But the thing that's always consistent, they don't put up tons of points on a weekly basis. Like, they've only had a couple 30-plus point games this year. So I just ultimately don't know how much upside is going to be there. But in this matchup, I don't think they're going to have trouble moving the ball down the field at will. So he is going to be here inside of the top 10 this week. Dropping down to our last tier, we've got Jake Elliott. I didn't think Jake Elliott would be back on this list. Here we are. At the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday night. Listen, with Jake Elliott, he's been largely what he always has been. Except last week, he actually missed a critical extra point attempt. He's had some misses this year, but ultimately, like over the last month, 15 points, 5 points, 10 points, 8 points. Philadelphia is kicking more field goals. Like used to be, they used to go for it a lot. They weren't kicking a lot of field goals. Right now, it's a little different. At Los Angeles, the matchup is good, and I think this will be a high-scoring game because Los Angeles is fighting for their playoff lives. Philly, I think, is going to have to put up points in this game. So ultimately, I just think Elliott is going to have his opportunities in this one to get down there in the range, kick about, 4 extra point attempts, maybe a field goal attempt or 2. Will Lutz at number 11. At the Las Vegas Raiders this week. With Denver, Will Lutz has been, he's been a really solid kicker this year. I mean, Will Lutz right now, kicker number 10, 8.5 fantasy points per game. And over the last month, he hasn't been that great. 4 points, 4 points, 2 points, 9 points. What's the problem here? Well, ironically, it's actually that Denver's becoming more efficient. They're actually scoring more extra points. They're actually scoring more touchdowns. Now, the other problem has been that, Will Lutz has missed a couple kicks. He did miss 2 field goal attempts versus Kansas City. One of them was blocked, obviously, but he did miss another one. Will Lutz versus the Las Vegas Raiders, I just don't see how this one busts. He's not going to be the biggest upside play, I don't think, but I don't think he'll bust in this game. I think his opportunities will be there all game for him, and I don't think he's going to bust against the Las Vegas Raiders. And then rounding it all out, Jason Myers at number 12 versus the Arizona Cardinals. I love the matchup. Arizona should definitely be more of a tighter game. I think there will be a lot of tighter games this week. And with Jason Myers, the one problem obviously has been he's missed kicks this year. The weather's also not good. I just think that ultimately Jason Myers will get enough opportunities this week versus Arizona because the matchup, again, Arizona does give up opportunities. They can get down there, but they don't give up tons of points. They're kind of a bend but don't break defense. And so I just think there's going to be opportunities for Seattle to get down there, stall out a couple times, give Jason Myers some field goal attempts. So let me know how your lineup is take and shake this week. And if you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for this week, click on this video right here.